The tension in the ABC studios was already palpable before the cameras even started rolling. It was a special episode of The View, and the producers knew they had something explosive on their hands. The guest for today's Hot Topic discussion? None other than Karoline Leavitt, the White House press secretary under President Donald Trump. The audience buzzed with anticipation as Karoline took her seat across from the panel of co-hosts. She was poised, calm, and exuded an air of confidence, her blonde hair impeccably styled, her suit crisp and professional. Across from her sat the familiar panel Joy Behar, Sunny Hostin, Alyssa Farah-Griffin, Sarah Haynes, and the ever-outspoken Whoopi Goldberg, who had been especially vocal about her criticisms of the Trump administration. Whoopi adjusted her glasses, leaned forward, and smirked slightly. The audience could sense she was ready for a verbal brawl. "All right," Whoopi began, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Karoline, first off, thanks for coming. We know it must be exhausting defending this administration every day." A murmur of laughter rippled through the audience. Karoline, unfazed, flashed a polite smile. "Oh, not at all, Whoopi," Karoline replied coolly. "I'd say it's actually quite refreshing correcting the misinformation that's spread on shows like this." The audience let out a mixture of gasps and applause. The battle lines were drawn. Whoopi's smile tightened. "Let's talk about that misinformation, shall we?" she said, crossing her arms. Donald Trump's administration has been accused of pushing divisive rhetoric, undermining democracy, and ignoring the real concerns of American citizens. How do you sleep at night knowing you're defending policies that hurt everyday Americans? There it was, the opening attack. The audience cheered as Whoopi leaned back, satisfied with herself. But Karoline was ready. She had come prepared, and she wasn't about to let Whoopi control the narrative. "With all due respect, Whoopi," Karoline began, "I think the real question is, how do you sleep at night knowing that you and the mainstream media have spent years misleading the American people? This administration is actually helping Americans, lower taxes, energy independence, securing our borders, things that real hardworking people care about. But instead, your show focuses on baseless attacks instead of facts." The room went silent for a second, and then applause. Even some of The View's live audience, known for being overwhelmingly liberal, seemed to appreciate Karoline's boldness. Whoopi, clearly not expecting such a sharp rebuttal, raised an eyebrow. But before she could respond, Joy Behar jumped in. "Karoline, let's be real," Joy scoffed. "Trump lost the last election and still went around claiming he won. That's dangerous rhetoric. It led to the events of January 6th. You can't seriously sit here and defend that." Karoline didn't even blink. "Oh, Joy, I find it incredibly ironic that you and your colleagues in the media suddenly care about dangerous rhetoric when it's coming from conservatives. Where was this outrage when people were calling Trump illegitimate for 4 years? When Hillary Clinton said he was an illegitimate president? When Democrats questioned elections for decades? The hypocrisy is astounding." The audience erupted into mixed reactions. Some cheers, some boos. Whoopi looked at Joy, then back at Karoline, realizing that this wasn't going to be the easy takedown she had hoped for. And Karoline? She was just getting started. Whoopi Goldberg shifted in her seat, clearly taken aback by Karoline Leavitt's unwavering confidence. This wasn't some nervous, weak-kneed Republican who would fold under pressure. Karoline had come ready for battle, and Whoopi wasn't about to let her off easy. "Well, since we're talking about hypocrisy, let's talk about the Trump administration's hypocrisy." Whoopi shot back, adjusting her glasses. "Your boss claims to be for the working class, yet he's giving tax cuts to billionaires. He talks about law and order, but he encouraged an insurrection. How do you square that, Karoline?" Karoline didn't flinch. She leaned forward slightly, her expression sharp but composed. "First of all, Whoopi, let's stop pretending that tax cuts for Americans are some kind of crime," Karoline said, her voice steady. "The Trump tax cuts helped middle-class families. Wages rose under his policies, and inflation was under control. Unlike what we're seeing today under Biden's disastrous economy." The audience murmured. Some nodded in agreement, while others shook their heads. Whoopi opened her mouth to interrupt, but Karoline wasn't done. As for January 6th, Karoline continued, I find it laughable that this show is obsessed with one riot, but you conveniently ignore the months of BLM riots that destroyed small businesses, burned down police stations, and cost Americans billions of dollars. Where was the outrage then? Where were the committee hearings for that? The room went eerily quiet. Even Joy Behar, known for her quick comebacks, hesitated for a moment. Whoopi narrowed her eyes, trying to regain control. Well, Karoline, there's a difference, Whoopi said, her tone more measured now. One was an attack on democracy, and the other was about racial justice. Karoline tilted her head slightly, as if she had expected this response. So violence is okay as long as it's done for a cause you support? She asked pointedly. Is that what you're saying? The audience gasped. Whoopi was speechless for a split second, long enough for Karoline to go in for the kill. The reality is, Whoopi, this administration is actually delivering for the American people, and that's why shows like this work so hard to tear us down. You don't want people to focus on the booming economy, the secure border, and the lower energy costs we had under Trump. Instead, you rely on emotional fear-mongering to push your narrative. Now the audience was clapping. Even some of the View's staunch liberal supporters were impressed by Karoline's unapologetic stance. Whoopi, clearly irritated, waved her hand dismissively. Oh, come on, Karoline, she said. You're just dodging. Why don't you answer this? Does Donald Trump still believe he won the 2020 election? Karoline smirked, as if she had been waiting for this question. Donald Trump believes what millions of Americans believe, that there were serious irregularities in that election, and that we need stronger election integrity, Karoline answered. And let me remind you, Whoopi, it wasn't Trump who questioned elections first. Democrats have done it for years. Stacey Abrams refused to concede in Georgia. Hillary Clinton said Trump was an illegitimate president. But when Republicans raise concerns, suddenly it's a crime. The audience reaction was mixed again, but Karoline's composure was unshaken. Whoopi exhaled sharply. That's nonsense, she snapped. Republicans are just sore losers. Karoline raised an eyebrow. Like Hillary was in 2016? She asked with a knowing smile. The audience exploded. Cheers, laughter, some boos. But one thing was clear. Karoline had landed a direct hit. Even Joy Behar shook her head, muttering, Oh my God. Under her breath, Whoopi, now visibly annoyed, took a deep breath. It was time to go nuclear. Whoopi Goldberg adjusted her glasses and leaned forward, her frustration evident. Karoline Leavitt had just turned the tables, and Whoopi wasn't used to losing control of the conversation. She needed to regain the upper hand and fast. You know what, Karoline? Whoopi said, her voice sharper now. You can spin this all you want, but let's talk about real issues. This administration has been a disaster for minorities, for women, for immigrants. You claim to support Americans, but Trump's policies have been about division, not unity. Karoline didn't miss a beat. She had dealt with these talking points before. Whoopi, I appreciate your passion, Karoline began, her tone calm but firm. But you're simply wrong. Under Trump, Black unemployment hit record lows, Hispanic wages rose, and women-owned businesses thrived. That's what matters, not media talking points. The audience reaction was split again. Some clapped, others groaned. Whoopi rolled her eyes. Oh, please. And what about the Muslim ban? What about separating families at the border? What about the people suffering because of his cruelty? Karoline leaned back slightly, as if Whoopi had just walked into a trap. Oh, you mean the border crisis that was nowhere near as bad as it is under Biden? Karoline shot back. You want to talk about separating families? Obama built the cages, Whoopi. Trump didn't. And right now, under Biden, we have record-breaking illegal crossings, fentanyl pouring in, and child trafficking skyrocketing. But you don't want to talk about that, do you? Whoopi's mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. The audience murmured. Karoline pressed forward. The real cruelty is an open border that allows drug cartels to exploit women and children, she continued. The real cruelty is leaving American citizens to suffer from inflation while sending billions overseas. This administration is putting America first, and that's why shows like this hate us. Whoopi was seething now. She shook her head, trying to suppress her anger. "You're unbelievable," she muttered. Karoline folded her hands neatly in her lap. "No, Whoopi," she said with a small smirk. "I'm just telling the truth." The audience erupted, some in cheers, others in boos. It was the most intense segment The View had seen in a long time. Joy Behar jumped in, trying to rescue Whoopi. "Well, Karoline, if Trump is so great, why is he facing all these lawsuits? Why is he being indicted left and right?" Karoline chuckled. "Oh, you mean the witch hunts?" she asked. "The politically motivated attacks by Democrats who are terrified that Trump is coming back? That's not justice, Joy. That's a weaponized legal system." Whoopi exhaled sharply, shaking her head again. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. And Karoline? She was just getting warmed up. The tension in the View studio was now so thick you could cut it with a knife. Whoopi Goldberg was clearly agitated, and Joy Behar looked equally frustrated. Meanwhile, Karoline Leavitt sat poised, her expression calm, her words precise. She knew she had the upper hand, and she wasn't about to let up. Joy Behar took another shot. "So, Karoline, let me get this straight. You're saying all of these cases against Trump, his fraud case, his hush money case, the January 6th case, they're all fake? That's a lot of conspiracy theories to believe." Karoline gave a small laugh. "Joy, I find it fascinating that after years of the Russia hoax, after impeachment sham after impeachment sham, you still think the justice system is apolitical when it comes to Trump." The audience murmured. Karoline continued, her voice unwavering. "Let's be honest, this isn't about justice. This is about stopping Trump from winning in 2024. The same way the FBI censored the Hunter Biden laptop story before the election, the same way the media ran with the Russia collusion lie. It's all about protecting Democrats, not enforcing the law." Whoopi leaned forward, slamming her hand on the table. "Oh, come on, Karoline. The man is a criminal. Are you saying Trump has never done anything wrong?" Karoline raised an eyebrow, unfazed by Whoopi's outburst. "No one is perfect, Whoopi," she replied. "But if Trump is such a criminal, then why is he being indicted by Democrats in Democrat-run cities? Why weren't these cases brought when he was in office? Why is Biden's DOJ ignoring his own family's blatant corruption?" The audience gasped. Karoline turned slightly toward the cameras. "Let's talk about real corruption. We have bank records showing millions of dollars flowing into the Biden family from China, Ukraine, and Romania. We have whistleblowers from the FBI and IRS saying they were blocked from investigating Hunter Biden. But somehow, the media wants us to focus on Trump's taxes and a 7-year-old payment to Stormy Daniels." The audience reaction was mixed: cheers, boos, claps. But one thing was clear: Karoline was shifting the narrative. Whoopi opened her mouth to interrupt, but Karoline wasn't done. "You want to talk about democracy and justice?" Karoline said, looking directly at Whoopi. "Then why aren't you demanding equal justice? Why don't you ask why Hillary Clinton destroyed 33,000 emails and faced no charges? Why aren't you upset that Biden took classified documents when he was a senator? Something Trump never did." Whoopi, clearly losing her patience, waved her hand dismissively. "That's just Republican talking points," she said. Karoline smirked. "No, Whoopi, that's reality." A section of the audience erupted in applause, while others booed. Whoopi sat back, fuming. For the first time in a long time, it was clear that the Views panel had met their match. Whoopi Goldberg was now visibly frustrated. She had spent years controlling conversations on The View, but Karoline Leavitt wasn't playing by the usual rules. The young press secretary wasn't intimidated, wasn't backing down, and, most importantly, was winning. Joy Behar, realizing Whoopi was out of steam, jumped in again. "All right, Karoline," she said, crossing her arms. "Let's cut the crap. Trump is a twice-impeached former president who is facing multiple indictments. He lost the 2020 election, and he's going to lose again. Why are you still defending this man? Why can't Republicans just move on? Karoline smiled, shaking her head slightly. She had been waiting for this moment. Joy, I'll tell you why, she said, her voice steady. Because the American people aren't stupid. They remember what life was like under Trump. Gas was cheap, groceries were affordable, wages were rising, and our border was secure. Compare that to what we have now. A broken economy, record high inflation, and an administration more focused on pronouns than keeping our communities safe. The audience cheered louder this time. The momentum was shifting entirely in Karoline's favor. But let's be honest, Karoline continued. You and the media don't actually care about Trump's character or indictments. If you did, you'd be asking why Biden's brother and son took millions from foreign governments. You'd be asking why there are bank records proving corruption in the White House. Whoopi threw up her hands. That's nonsense, she snapped. There's no evidence that Joe Biden did anything wrong. Karoline's smirk deepened. Oh, so now we're pretending bank records and IRS whistleblowers aren't evidence? That's convenient, Whoopi. The audience erupted again, this time more cheers than boos. Karoline turned to the camera. The truth is, shows like this don't want Americans to think for themselves. They want you to believe every scandal about Trump is real and every scandal about Biden is fake. They want you to believe inflation is your fault, not Biden's fault. They want you to believe that if you question anything, you're a conspiracy theorist. But the American people aren't buying it anymore. She turned back to Whoopi. And that's why Trump is going to win in 2024. The audience exploded, half cheering, half booing. But one thing was clear. Karoline had just destroyed the panel in their own house. Whoopi, now completely speechless, could only shake her head. The producer's voice suddenly cut in. We've got to go to commercial. The camera zoomed in on Whoopi's face. A mix of anger and defeat. Karoline simply sat back in her chair, calm, composed, and victorious. As the screen faded to black, one thought echoed across America. She just changed the game.